A pleasant day. Welcome to the Chai Academy. Thank you for joining us today. We have been focusing on the 6 steps of human development. So it's not really necessarily a parenting course. It is the way the Talmud, Torah, the sages, the way they hello Eileen. It's the way they viewed what are the 6 recipes, fundamental 6 recipes for human development. So we are actually holding today number 5. We have discussed the 4, each one in a separate class, and each one is self-contained. If you wish to view the previous 4 or any other of my classes, you can go to YouTube and put in Chai Academy, Spotify Chai Academy, thechaicenter.com/Chai Academy. So the Talmud, it lists these obligations to society, basically, and we discussed them. Today's one, the words the Talmud uses. Remember, the words are euphemisms. The words the Talmud uses for this independence is that we're obligated to find a job and help our children get a job. So what is a job? A job is independence. So yes, a job is also where you make money, etc. But bottom line is chase it to the source. Why do we need to make money? So we're not reliant on anybody. So we use our skills, our talents, our charm, etc. And it's a lesson. We have to let somebody become independent. It's the healthiest thing. Whether you're a parent, whether you're a coworker, whether you're a boss, whether you're a teacher, it's important not to hover and be a helicopter mom, but rather it's vastly independent, and that's what it means. Essentially, we all know there's such a thing as training wheels, right? You have training wheels on a bicycle, and however, when the child says, no, don't remove those wheels, if you never remove those wheels, then the child will never be able to ride a bike. So it's important to let our children, colleagues, employees soar by making mistakes. If everything is set out for them, they'll never be able to become independent. They're always going to run to the boss and is this good? There has to be independence involved. Now, I'm reminded of Michelangelo, who said that I don't care. Something to this effect. I don't mind if you aim high and miss. What I do mind, or what I am most concerned about, is if we constantly aim low and hit the target. You have to let people under you aim high. And sometimes it will work, sometimes it will. Right? The idea is that your child, your whomever, grandchild, should become the author of their own book, not your book. They should be able to write their own autobiography, and it's different from your autobiography. We all have aspirations for ourselves, and that's perfect. We all have aspirations for our loved ones, and that's perfect. The problem is when your loved ones do not follow your dream you set out for them. So that's where the problem lies. Is that it's a fundamental, right? That we're all unique. I always tell this to people, by the way, that parents have influence over their children until their children are about 16. The closer the relationship, the more influence. the distant the relationship, the less influence. But ultimately, control and influence is somewhat of an illusion, because it was temporary. It was just a short period in time, and you got to be okay with it. God created all of us to become partners in creation. He didn't create us as Siamese twins with our boss, with our parent, with our grandparent, we're all independent one of another, and that's what God wants. You, being you, need to perfect creation. Right? And once again, the command of the Torah, where it says, and mankind shall leave their parents' house and cleave to their spouse. So we spoke about cleaving to the spouse, but leave the parents' house. Leave. You're your own person. You're absolutely your own person. I know people who, their parents, they're adults, 30s, 40s, etc. They're adults, and the parents are so micromanaging that it's disturbing. And we can be a micromanager with our spouse. We can be a micromanager with our sibling. We can be, as a boss, you can be a micromanager, and it's very disturbing, because it's everybody is on their own path. Yes, you should teach a person to aim high, as Michelangelo said. But that's all you can do, is teach. You cannot, for the rest of your life, hold on to their bow and arrow and force them to go high. You can teach, you can inculcate, you can influence, you can suggest, etc. But everybody is independent, and that is what Passover is all about, right? What are we celebrating on Passover? We're celebrating the end of slavery and independence. We're no longer slaves. We no longer are answerable to someone else. We're answerable to ourselves. And that's the celebration. We left Egypt. We left the confines of Egypt. We left the servitude of Egypt. We left our dependence on the Egyptians for everything. No, we're independent. We're completely independent. And that's, by the way, that's why communism is so bad. Is because it's dependent. You rely on the government. You're not supposed to rely on anybody other than God. So Passover was celebrating independence. We leave Egypt. We get out and we walk out, and we're celebratory. Right? That's what Passover is. That's what a bar mitzvah is, for that matter. What are we celebrating? Bar mitzvah. Because the child has reached puberty? That's not. We're celebrating now that the child can make decisions by themselves. And a child is a child. The child always has to be pushed, and the child, has to be taught, etc., and inculcated. But bar mitzvah is the understanding that there's a certain maturation that occurs where this child can make their own decisions. They may be right, they may be wrong. I have always said this. I've written about this many times. When a child meets with success, gets 100 on their exam, that's incredible. But what a beautiful feeling, and what a great that the child feels good. But you know what a better teacher is? You know what a better lesson in life is? When the child gets a 50. Because then the lesson is, you didn't work hard enough? Or the lesson is, do you need extra help? Or the lesson is, do you have ADHD? Which is probably, these days, that's going to be the first solution. But it's a much better lesson. Right? Your child doesn't get picked for the play, right? Or your child gets picked for a minor part. That is phenomenal, because your child, albeit they're in pain, but they learn, and they learn fast, that life is not necessarily fair, or life, you you have to, you have to blaze your own trail. Sometimes you will not be chosen. Sometimes, sometimes it's just someone else is better, or so someone else is more charismatic, or someone's parents, gave a little bonus to the teacher. So the child has to learn this. Otherwise you're in la la land. Right? Oh, I always get picked for the play. Oh, I always get 100. Oh, I always da. No, it doesn't. It's the best teacher of independence is when something happens that the child is not happy about. That's the best. And it comes running home to the parents, okay, it's not fair. And the parents look at the child and said, you're right. That is probably one of the greatest lessons you can give to your child, is instead of running to the principal to say, my child needs to get picked for the play, you embrace your child. You kiss their tears. You dry their tears. And you say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I really am. Honey, there's always a next time. Or do you want to go and to a different theater? Do you want to go to so and so and so and so? I heard about this acting acting coach. Oh, what? I don't care what you say, but it is, the idea is alive and well, that it helps a child to be independent. You know what else helps independence? When you're not an only child. If you're an only child, it's very difficult to really to gain independence because you're the only child. If you're a child of many or a few, doesn't have to be many. If you're a child, there's 3 or 4 in your family, you'll get independent pretty quick, because if you don't reach for the cereal quickly, it's all going to be gone. If you don't, if you don't get to the milk, it's going to be gone. Or you don't, you're the last one at the Hanukkah present, you're going to get the last Hanukkah present. So it's that also helps foster independence. It is probably the greatest gift you can do. Is let your child go. Just let your child go. It's maybe hard, but let them go. They want to go to they go away for school. Make sure you choose a good school, or right school, a proper school. For specifically for the child, but let them go. They don't have to. They do not have to go to your back door school. No, if they want to go. Encourage it, and you don't call them every day. I know so many people who were helicopter parents, and their children say, back off, stop it, don't call me every day, please. Now, it's hurtful, but that is the reason, because they feel stifled and cannot breathe. And there are other parents that let their kid breathe, and then it's a great relationship, right? I've learned this the hard way. There are a few. I think there are a few pointers that I've thought about that one can it can help one foster independence, and whether it's a child, whether it's a coworker, etc., whether it's a spouse or sibling, right? Number one is you can't control anybody. Not your child, not a spouse, not a friend, not a mentor. You cannot control. It doesn't work. You seek to be controlling, it's going to have a bad ending. Why? Because people reject being controlled. Just completely reject it. So, and we will echo what we said earlier, that even as your children growing up as children, control was an illusion, because ultimately you didn't have control. Proof of the pudding is once they get older, it does not last. I mean, You know yourself. You tell your child, a baby, a toddler, and don't do this. Don't throw the cereal. Don't. There's no control. There's no control, and that's the easy part. So that's the first thing. Control. There, you don't have it. You shouldn't want it. You should want to let the child, and that leads us to number 2. You need to support them. Everybody's unique. Everybody has their own individualism, right? Nobody's created redundant, and nobody's created exactly the same. We all have different fingerprints and iris prints, whatever it's called. We're all extremely different. We may have a doppelganger, someone who looks like us, but I promise you they're not like you at all. Right? They may look like you, but they're nothing like you. Right? So we have to support it. We have to encourage it. Somebody once came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and said to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, blessed memory, said, Rebbe, I don't understand. I'm struggling with this child of mine. I'm really struggling. And you know what, Rebbe? I don't understand why I'm struggling so much. I brought them up exactly. My wife and I brought them up exactly the same. They had the same upbringing, one to the other. And the Rebbe said, that's the problem. You can't. Absolutely cannot bring them up exactly the same. Each child is different. I know in my family, I have 5 kids, and each child is so vastly different from the other. And it takes the wisdom of Solomon to be able to say, okay, it's this kid talking and not that kid, because each one is different. Each one is different. So you can't bring them up the same, right? We see this, by the way. We see that Jacob had a brother, Esau, right? We're brought up in the house of Isaac and Rebekah. One became Jacob, one became Esau. What's that all about? One became righteous, the other became wicked. One was all about values, the other one was a murderer. How do you have the same household? So some of it is genetic. Some of it, there's this, people say, is it nature or nurture? And the answer is yes, it's both. Right? There's a lot of nature in there, there's a lot of nurture in there, and we have to respect and trust the process. It doesn't mean the child shouldn't hear no, because no helps with independence. Once again, it's the child needs the child needs to fail, and part of failure is no, we don't do this, and the child says, oh, we don't do this. Okay. Another way is this is more parental than anything else, is there better be chores in the house. If you're a parent and you have children living in the house, and by the way, I'm talking about children, I don't care what age the children are, they're living in your house or grandchildren, they have to do chores. It is off if they don't. If they're sick, God forbid, if they're sick, then that's what could you do? But if they're not sick, they have to do chores. They have to, pick up after themselves. They have to wash the dishes. They have to do the laundry. They have whatever it is, because you want them to be a fully functional person in society and not have no clue how to boil an egg. Just a very, very practical thing. Next on my list is, you are not judge, you're not jury, and you're not executioner. You're not. Your job is to rear healthy children, have a healthy workspace, be a good sibling, and a good spouse. Right? Don't let God get involved in your nonsense. One spouse keeps kosher, the other spouse doesn't keep kosher. There's no reason for a divorce. Unless they tell you you have to eat pork, then there's a problem. But if they do what they do and you do what you do, and there's respect all around for the dishes, for this, that, and the other, then you're not eating the pork, right? You're not eating the pork. And I say this, by the way, from experience, not pork, but I say this from experience, is that family members, I have family members who have different, they're not as observant as I am, and I don't say a word. I don't say a word. Why should I say a word? I'm gonna let God come into the middle of a relationship with blood, flesh and blood. I'm not gonna do that. Right? They can eat Chick-fil-A. I'm not eating Chick-fil-A because it's not kosher. I'm not gonna eat it. They want to eat it. They want to eat it. Does it mean that they have to get a whole lecture from me? No. I don't lecture anybody. I'm only responsible for myself as far as God goes. Yes, you have to live an inspirational life. You have to. Everybody. It's not just the rabbi. You have to. But the bottom line is, you cannot disown a child, a friend, a mentor, a colleague, whatever it may be, because they have a different religious value. That mistake has been made. It's not the correct approach. It's not. Even with one's own kids. You would think, I have the right to tell them. You don't. Maybe when they're 6. But once they hit a certain age, I believe they're 16, you don't. You don't. It's a attempted futility. It's just... So, don't let God come in between. It's important for them to have a mentor. Now, you could be the mentor, but if they choose someone else as the mentor, you can't be jealous. You have to be proud. Right? They for whatever reason, they chose someone else as a mentor. Mentor is very, very powerful thing. A mentor is someone who, it's not a parallel relationship, it's a serial relationship. The mentor is above the individual. A parent is above a child. A spouse is a parallel relationship. But and if it's serial, there's something wrong with it. But if you're their mentor and they seek advice, great. If they don't seek advice, do not give it unless asked. Do not give your advice unless asked. And you cannot be jealous if they have a mentor other than you. Another item on my list, this is all helps with independence, and it's for yourself as well. You got to do chores. You can't just rely on everybody else. Yeah, be a mensch. That's what independence really is. You're your own mensch. And the only one you have control over is yourself. Anyone else is just an illusion. The next thing on my list is foster friendships. Everybody must have a friend. You have to foster friendships with your kids. You make sure they have friends. Make sure you have friends. Make sure your spouse has friends. You're friends with your spouse as well. Correct. But you need to broaden the circle. There's a story in the Talmud. Story in Talmud about this rabbi who planted a tree, and it's, you know what it is? It's this source for I think it's Rumpelstiltskin. It's Choni Hamagal. The Talmud, I don't know if it's a fable, whatever it is, but the idea is alive and well. Listen to the story. This Choni Hamagal, he planted a tree, and he fell asleep. And he woke up, and it's a full-grown tree with fruit. And he says, wow, how long did I sleep? And he stopped somebody, asked them the date, and they said, okay, you slept 70 years. He goes, that's incredible. Right? So he goes into the study hall, and he says, he'd like to speak to Choni Hamagal's son. So the fellow said, oh no, I'm sorry, you didn't hear the news. Choni Hamagal's son passed away. He says, how about his grandson? Oh, his grandson? Yeah. So, and he went to Choni Hamagal. He went to his grandson, and his grandson couldn't jive that he was the grandfather, because if his father died and he hasn't seen his grandfather in who knows how many years, it didn't work. And he went back to the study hall and he was looking for buddies, his friends, his contemporaries, peers. And they had all passed. Right? It's 70 years since he saw them last. And he tried to fit in. He tried. But it was a different era. It was a different generation. It was a different vibe. You know, all of a sudden he wakes up and there's holes in jeans and it's cost a lot of money. When he went to sleep, if you had a hole in your jean, you're a hobo. So he turns to God and he said, take me, please. Oy chabrusa, oy misusa. Either give me friends or give me death. Right? It's not a life. It's not a life without friends. It's very different. A spouse, it's very different if that's your only friend. It could work technically, but I wouldn't say it's the healthiest thing. But as children, as you can't just be coworkers. You have to have friends in your life, right? A friend is somebody who you respect, but not as a mentor, not as a peer, but somebody on the same wavelength as you. That helps also mold who you are to your own partner with God on terra firma. This is so these are just some of the thoughts that I had. So remember, the best thing I can teach you is let them fail. Teach anybody you meet to aim high. Aim high. Let them fall on their face, but then they have to get up, brush themselves off, and try a different strategy. It's the best gift you can give them. Make sure that you do not stifle them, and do not crowd them to the point where they have no oxygen. Allow them to help themselves. This is a great joke about this Jewish guy. He goes into a library and he goes into a bookstore or a library, wherever, it doesn't make a difference. And he goes over to the person, the cashier or the librarian, and says, "Excuse me, I'm looking for the self-help section. Could you please guide me?" To which the person responds, "No, because if I do, it would defeat the process, wouldn't it?" So, and it's a joke, but it's important. You cannot hand everything to somebody on a silver platter, right? And with a child or even anybody under you, if you keep on doing things for them, they're not going to like you. They're going to end up disliking you. And who wants that? So help them help themselves by taking a step back. That will assure a very, very healthy independence, of which you can have a great, loving, trusting relationship with. So it's somewhat counterintuitive, but it's very clear from the books, all whether it's Jewish ones or secular ones, this is the way to go. If you have any questions, you may ask it right here or rabbi@thechaicenter.com. Please feel free to share these messages with others. In fact, I was lamenting the other day that there's not a lot of sharing going on. We have a whole YouTube channel for people to peruse. Let them know that, please. Be well and live another day. God bless.